Hey friends, welcome back to Whiskey and Wit. Today's video is day 5 in the 12 days of Christmas. If you've missed any of the prior videos, I will link that playlist down below for you. But today we are going to make a DIY farmhouse sign. And I'm really excited to share some of my tips and tricks with Cricut. You guys have been asking for that. So I wanted to show you how I create these and some of the tips that I've learned along the way. So stay tuned.
First tip off the bat is to look for signs that you can repurpose instead of having to get the wood yourself. Now, if you want to do that, you totally can. But for me, I found it's a lot easier to find signs like this when they go on super sale at Hobby Lobby. This was under $6. And then also for this project, I did a cedar wreath and some ribbon. So the first thing I did to prep my sign was to tape off the border because I wanted to keep the dark wood the way that it was. And then I wanted to give it 3-ish probably coats of Waverly chalk paint. Now I love using Waverly chalk paint period, but I like chalk paint when you're going to put a stencil or a sticker on it just because of the fact that it's going to help stuff stick a lot better because it gives you a rougher finish. So keep that in mind as you're choosing your paints. It's going to stick better than like say a spray paint or something. It's usually not going to peel as bad. So while that dried, I printed out my decal. I will leave the link to download this free printable down below because I made this. But also something else to keep in mind is as you're designing in Cricut Design Space, use a block font or a thicker font that's going to help with the cutting. And then also when you weed, take out the middle pieces first. I found that really helps me make sure that things stick a lot better. So sometimes if you go to pull the sheet off the top and you still have the center within like an E, let's say, and you go to pull that out, usually if there's nothing around it, it's a more flimsy. So if you take these out to begin with, then you're not going to be fighting it later on. So I do that first. And then I go in and it's kind of like a surgical procedure when I'm working on something this precise, just because there's dots on top of eyes and commas and all of these different little pieces that I have ripped this quickly so many times and then all of a sudden you're missing pieces and you've got to recut and it's a pain. So what I found is using two hands, one to pull back the vinyl, the other with my Cricut tool, and then to use scissors to cut the pieces as I go. So make sure that you've got a full word intact or part of a line and then cut off the piece of vinyl, just so then that way you're working chunk by chunk and you don't have to worry about getting that whole sheet off at once. So I know I usually speed through these, but keep in mind that this is not something that I speed through really. I think this probably took me maybe 25 minutes to do just because I did not want to have to cut it again. So keep that in mind, especially for your newbies. It is not a process that is going to come to you super fast, and it's not something that you're going to get super fast at right away. So patience is key. Once you spend the time to get through that correctly, then I suggest using a paper-based transfer tape. I've talked about Expressions vinyl before. They're my favorite. I will link them down below. But their paper transfer tape is literally unmatched in my book when it comes to making signs. It is sticky enough to get your stencil off of the carrier sheet or your decal or whatever you're using, but it's also not going to rip up all that paint that you just put down. So it is a sticky transfer medium, but it's paper based, so then that way it's really going to help you with this particular project. If you're putting on glass or something else, it doesn't really matter, but for this sign specifically on the paint, I wanted to use the paper transfer tape. And once my sign was dry, I removed my painter's tape and then it was ready to be decaled. So I cut off all the extra. That really just helps me so that when I'm aligning it, I'm not looking at an extra, half an inch of transfer tape on one side. It throws me off. And then also this process is another piece that you want patience with. If you're pulling it back and you're seeing those little black pieces on the white sheet, you're going to want to push it back down, but that's why you want to use that squeegee. I will also link that squeegee down below. I personally like that better than Cricut squeegee, so I would recommend it. It's a little more pliable and I found it works a lot better. Same thing with this, cut as you go, so then you're not working with a huge piece. And then once it's done, it's time to line it up. So this for me was a little bit easier than some that I'm used to. Sometimes script fonts are not straight because they're supposed to mimic handwriting. This here was pretty much a perfect square, so I wanted to make sure everything lined up. Now when you go to squeegee it on, you want to do everything from the center out. That helps with bubbles, that helps with everything aligning correctly. So go down the center and then go out to the right, out to the left. So after I made sure everything was stuck down, then I started peeling my transfer tape. Again, I've said it a ton of times, but patience is the key with this, especially if you're new to transferring decals. You could get frustrated really easily, so take your time. Don't fly through it until you're super, super comfortable. So then once I finished the actual sign portion, I wanted to hang my cedar wreath. So this came from the Target Dollar Spot. I believe it was $3. They had them last year and then again this year. But you can honestly make your own wreath. You can use a small wreath that you have. The sky's the limit there. And then I used Walmart holiday time ribbon. That was 30 feet of the buffalo check ribbon for like $4. So I talked about that in my haul, but honestly I've used it for everything, so I'm so glad I bought it. So then you want to make sure that your wreath is set up where you want it. If you want it centered, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, whatever your preference is, then it's time to glue. So I took a hot glue gun, put a huge dab of glue right in the center of the top of the frame, put down my first piece of ribbon, made sure all my edges were good to go, and then I got my wreath all set back up where I decided I wanted it. And then I added a ton more glue on top of the ribbon piece, and then got it all set and held it down really taut. I used a few different things to push it down because you want to make sure it's on there, but don't touch it because you're going to burn your hand. I've done it before. And then trim off your excess on the back, and that's it. Now you could honestly do the same look with a printable inside of a frame. So you could print the 12 by 12 piece that I have below, you could put it in a frame and then do the same thing. So really there's a lot of different options. You could also stamp the Silent Night on the back. You can get some stamps from Michaels. So literally you could do this in a variety of ways.
Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments if you have additional questions about Cricut silhouette. I know a lot of you have let me know that you are asking for one for Christmas or just had a treat yourself moment and got yourself one for Black Friday, so let me know. Also be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next 7 videos of the 12 days of Christmas. These will go through next week, so be sure to subscribe for that. And also give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying the 12 days of Christmas. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!